he's headed back to our hometown, and the flight was there was a overweight. Don't get it. I understand the term, but basically, there's too much luggage and people on the plane. So basically, they have to level it off, and by doing that, they might even ask you to get up and move your seat to the other side of the plane to kind of balance it, as along with moving luggage and or people off the plane. So she was one of the unlucky four that got removed from the plane. So
no.
Last night I had to go and pick her up from the airport. Luckily she's in the city where she has kids, here. So we can go pick her up. And as I thought about it, man, I'm driving over there because I'm about a good 45 minutes easy with no traffic to the airport. And as I thought, I was like, man, we got the podcast in the morning. I can be back over here by this time. I just put her in a hotel, man. Put her in the Sheraton over there. Let her live it up a little bit, and saw her out. I called her to check on her this morning, and that took the shuttle to the airport, man. So we were good to go, because that was more efficient at the time for me.
Right. So she got delayed overnight.
Overnight, yeah. That was the last leg for that night.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. So what do you do?
But I mean, so with the flight restrictions right now, because of the Omicron.
Yeah.
Right. So like, do you think that that's playing a factor in like how the flights or how everything's running at the airport?
Actually, I think the airports are, at least at the hours, I think they're pretty much back to normal, so to speak, as far as that goes. Of course, you got to mask up, or show whatever your vaccination status is, whatever the case is.
They're saying that they have that they're starting to institute tighter restrictions, like testing for travel and stuff because of this Omicron variant, which is apparently it's more like you catch it easier,
more transmittable.
Yeah, more transmittable. Right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I was just wondering if you had seen anything like that, or if
I know that there are restrictions for certain places that they're advising people not to go. I know also that they want you to, of course, use more precautionary measures when it comes to going to the airports, how you handle things, how you handle your luggage, going through and on the planes when you're eating or drinking or whatever. They literally want you to make sure that they're doing that because of this Omicron variant, which it'll be another Greek alphabet soon, sooner or later.
Right.
But it's there.
Yeah. So with this, I think that and I was watching a report. They said that they think that it's going to be something akin to like the flu vaccine, like where you're just going to have to get a vaccine every year, in order to stave it off.
Right.
But they're already showing in the Houston area they haven't had any cases pop up.
There's one.
But really, I know in Harris County
there was a lady supposedly that she has it. I don't know how far. Harris County is so huge, or where it is, so it may have fallen outside of Houston. But I know there's one.
But
locally.
in the wastewater plants, they're showing that they've tested it and they see it in the wastewater.
Oh, well.
So so it's not outside of Houston. Like there are people here that have it, obviously, but nobody's tested for it.
I wonder what would push someone to test the wastewater, because you and I both know there's a whole lot more than Omicron in that wastewater.
Right. I mean, but you could conspiracy theorist it up. You know what I'm saying?
Of course. I mean, you test the wastewater, you're bound on, like I say, you look for a snake, you'll find a snake.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be there. And it's at the point now with this, so since we're in it, this whole COVID-19 and Omicron and all of that stuff. With the flu, I never get flu vaccine. Just nothing that. I had the flu once, and I haven't had it since then. But I was never one of those to run to get a flu vaccine. It just wasn't one for me. And even with this whole COVID-19 deal, I was resistant and still resistant to the idea of someone having to force me to get a shot. Now, I'll say this. I think the rollout of it could have been handled differently. And the mandates is really what make people push back. When you tell someone they have to do something, no, I'm not.
But does that fall into the same kind of category as like being able to tell people what they can do with their body? Does that fall into the same kind of category as abortion?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because it's funny to me that you got Republicans sitting up on the Hill, right, talking about we don't have the right to tell people that they have to get a COVID vaccine, like doing these COVID vaccine mandates. But those same Republicans feel like it's okay for us to mandate, whether or not a woman can have an abortion.
Well, I won't paint every Republican with that brush, but to your point, it's on the flip side, the same exact thing. That you have some that mandate or they want you to be forced to get a vaccine. If we want to call them Democrats, we'll call them Democrats, right? You got to get a vaccine. But when it comes to an abortion, I should be able to do what I want with my body, my choice. So I think we have on both ends of the spectrum, a lot of folks, adults that are kind of, hey, I want to do what I want to do. And I think really if it was just rolled out with, hey, listen, we strongly caution you and we recommend that you get this. It's your choice ultimately, but you need to get it.
But I feel the same way about abortion, right? Like I strongly recommend that you don't do that.
Right.
Right? But is it right for the government to say, or set these limits on what a person can do with their body, or tell them that they can't do it, right? Like that's where the question for me lies, right? Like they're talking about overturning Roe versus Wade,
Yeah, and do I think that'll ever happen? I don't know. Strange things have happened. I don't think that'll happen, but I know they're talking about it, and it's enough to get us distracted because that is not what's going on, Jeff. If you aren't looking beyond the Roe versus Wade conversation, they bring this crap up to distract us from what's really kind of going on with things that we need to be focused on. But I don't think Roe versus Wade will be overturned. I'm not for abortion, but I'm also not for the death penalty, and some people are for that. Now, that was not my stance always. I used to be, hey, you know what? You kill somebody, we gonna kill you. That used to be my stance. But I had to determine if I'm going to consider myself a Christian and live listen, all murder is bad murder. Either, no matter who, we're not God. We can't give life. We can't take life. So I had to change my stance with that, which I think everybody's entitled to do so. So to your point, it's kind of one of those dividing lines where if it's going to cause death to the woman, then am I going to tell her, no, you can't have it. You just got to die. That's not my choice.
Right.
It's got to be hers. Do I want the baby to die? No. But I also can't position myself to say, hey, yeah, you got to die. So
but
that's,
you also, to kind of frame it in a different light, for these women that have these babies and they're not and they're not ready for it,
right?
Or, they would have preferred to have an abortion or whatever. Like, then what happens to the child? Is the child living in poverty? Is the child, maybe they didn't want it and now they're mistreating the child and now the child ends up dead anyway? You know what I'm saying? Like how does it all play out?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I agree with you. And while we're in that, man, because this is something I read the other day. I think if you have, as a man, if you have children, you need to take care of your kids.
Absolutely.
Period. But I also feel like if a woman's going to get an abortion from that, I think that the man that she got impregnated by, he should be able to have a voice in that decision. because if let's just say she does have that baby. If she has that baby and he didn't want that kid, he would still have to pay child support. He'd be on the hook. If she got any kind of public assistance, he would be responsible. They would come after him, garnish his wages, so on and so forth. 100%. So on the flip side of that, I think it should also be, it's like, listen, if you're gonna have the baby, if you don't want it, give it to me. I'll take care of the baby. That kind of deal. So, but I think that kind of gets missed as well. So what do you think about that?
Oh no, I'm absolutely in total agreement with that. Like if the woman is pregnant and she decides it's not fully her decision. I mean, this was a 50-50 kind of situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Or it might have been 100-0, depending on how long it took. You know,
right.
You never.
So I mean, we both participated in the making of the child. So let's both participate in the decision of whether this child is going to get
absolutely
to continue.
Well, cool, man. I know that we were kind of off the rails a little bit with that, but it's kind of good discussion with it. So we're gonna dive into what we have. A couple topics we have to talk about today, and this first one, Jacob kind of brought this to our attention. This is a lawsuit. So we're in Houston, and this Astro World Festival took place. Excuse me. And for those that don't know what Astro World is, it used to be an amusement park here in our area that is now defunct, gone. It was part of the Six Flags family, but it doesn't exist anymore. And it's funny to look at that field, man, and just look at
just empty.
It's just empty. And it doesn't even look as big as I thought Astro World was, but nevertheless. But these festivals, Travis Scott would bring these music festivals around, kind of like a Coachella or a Woodstock kind of setup, where these musicians would come in and they would have these concerts. And the last one that was actually here, we had a tragedy of was it 8 or 10, 9 or 10 people?
I think it was 9, right?
That died because they were trampled to death. It was just so many people are in there. So there's been lawsuits, which we knew were going to be coming against Travis Scott. And this one is for $10 billion. Now, let me do the math. 10 billion. Let me see. 10 billion. I don't know if my calculator even goes that high.
Yeah.
But nope, it won't get there. But let's just do the rough and dirty. How much? So we know the lawyers are going to get, 40% of that typically.
Yeah, right.
Is what if they win it.
Right.
And then it's like, how much do you get as a concert goer if there's 1,500 people that signs into this class action lawsuit? Because quite frankly, is it Travis Scott's fault that they died?
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it really his fault? I mean, don't get me wrong. So he's the one that hosts, right?
Right.
But is it his fault, or is it the people that were organizing the security of the function? Right. Like, so who really should be getting sued? Is it Travis Scott or the people, the security company?
Because it was at NRG Park, right?
Right.
They were there. You had to go through their at least to get onto the property. You had to go through their folks to get in there.
Right. And so like they're the ones that are tasked with setting up the fences, providing the security. Right. Now, if people come through and they push those fences down, when Travis Scott comes on stage, is it Travis Scott's fault that they push the fences down?
Right.
Or is it a failure in security or the fencing or whatever? Like, who's really to blame?
Who is to blame? So kind of like if you got a group of people together, and they were going to travel to Washington, D.C. and gather around, the Capitol and have a rally and a discussion or whatever. And a few of these idiots decide they want to climb the stairs and rush their place. Is that one individual's fault, or is that the fault of those that were involved in the issue? Because they're very parallel to me with what happened on January 6th. I take no side on any of it. I think it was foolishness and it was an embarrassment to us as a country. But I kind of liken it the same way. If you think that that was Donald Trump's fault, then this is Travis Scott's fault. If you don't think that was Donald Trump's fault, this is not Travis Scott's fault. I don't think it's Travis Scott's fault because we're all adults. We're all responsible for our decisions. And I find that this is going to be a total waste of the court system's time to run it through there.
I think that the difference between the two situations, I mean, while I agree with you that they're pretty similar, but I think that the difference between the two situations is the fact that, like, Trump participated in stoving that fire, like, you know, stoking it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so did you see the tweets from Travis Scott? Because that was one of the arguments someone else made. They were just saying, hey, you know, we sneak in too, kind of encouraging people, you know, don't wait in the lines, just sneak in. That was just some tweets that were on his page that are now taken down. So that's some damaging stuff kind of against him. That's kind of like, even if I did that, I didn't make you come and run down on people, but he did kind of encourage that type of behavior. But it's kind of been an ongoing kind of thing. Supposedly at the concerts, that's what people do. Some folks sneak in. So it was kind of like, we do it all the time. Let's just continue to do it. Because there was a video out Jeff, people were getting, there wasn't enough. Let's say there was like 4 entrances, and it was like squeezing a toothpaste tube in the middle and trying to push it all through. These folks were trying to pour in, and once someone fell down, it was hard for them to get up. That was just on the outside. So I couldn't imagine what was taking place once they got inside the place.
Well, and you know, and I guess kind of to your point, like, since they knew that, you know, it was coming even for like the January 6th thing, right? Like, they knew that it was coming. How could they not? Right? Like, if they were monitoring any kind of social media, then why didn't they take precautions?
Exactly. And with the Travis Scott, if you know this is what he does, and they do, just take precaution. I think he's the big name, an easy target. Now, I think he paid for the funerals of the people. That's what he was doing. Which, you know, he didn't have to do that, but he did. But $10 billion? First of all, where is it going to come from?
Well, and I think that, you know, people are just, you know, by nature opportunists.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You're exactly right.
And so, like, when they see that, you know, you know, they're getting together like enough people for like class action lawsuits, right? Yeah. They're like, hey, let me jump in on that. Yes. You know, let me get my piece of that pie.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very interesting to see what'll come of this, because, man, 10 billion. I didn't do any research, but I would have to say that that's the largest that I've heard of.
Well, and he probably doesn't have the money for that. And even if they were to sue like the security company, or, you know, would they have the money for that?
Let me see if they see Travis Scott net worth, which is not always, you know, right. It says 60 million. That's like a nickel.
Drop in the bucket.
There's no way. I mean, it's not gonna happen.
For sure,
it won't happen for sure for these people. But like you said, people jump on it, and they see what they got to do to make it happen. So, any hoodle. I guess we keep it in the same vein with local Houston news. So there is a mega church here, and their leader had a plumber come in. I guess they had some work they needed to do, and you know, it happens. But there was some money. Now, how much money was found?
Can we talk $600,000?
So apparently there was some a case from 6 or 7 years ago that I guess just was left cold, and this money was supposedly from that particular theft, where it was literally money pouring out of the walls, $600,000
That's
worth of money
craziness.
at Lakewood Church. So this is Joel Osteen's church. For those of you that don't know, he's the smiley preacher, as they call it. I like Joel. I don't have a problem with him. I don't know if he brings the meat for everyone.
He's a great motivational speaker. That's what I say.
And that's what most people say. I think he's a flavor for someone, and if it'll get you closer to have some type of positive relationship in the world, hey, so be it. But he does lead that church, and I want to say, Lord, Lakewood have. Well, here's the thing: it's in the old Compact Center where the Houston Rockets used to play, so that gives you an idea how huge. This
It is
church
absolutely
is.
huge.
Well,
Well, you just had a picture of it, I think, didn't you? You just had a picture of it up here. There you go.
Yep, that is the good Lakewood.
So it's huge. Now my question is that, like, who put it in the wall to begin with?
And that's the thing.
Right? How did it get there?
Here's the deal. It was envelopes. So that makes me think this was probably money from the tithes in the church. People paying their tithes and offering, because this guy that called in on this radio show that was acting as this plumber, just said, hey, it was just envelopes upon envelopes,
checks, money. They had checks in there too.
Yeah.
Checks, money. I mean, it was just insane. Like, but my question is how did it get in there, and how did nobody know about it until this happened? Like, and then, like, I mean, it makes you wonder about, like, Joel Osteen and his wonderful multi-million-dollar mansion, right? Like, questions obviously start coming out.
Well, of course, that's the thing, because people will. You already have some of these guys that lead these mega churches that have a bad reputation, because it's just hard to convince some people that it's necessary for you to live in a $1 million, mansion, multi-million-dollar mansion as the leader of a church. Now, we all know that Joel Osteen, I will say this, and I'll approach it with caution because I don't know him. I would say he's a preacher and the pastor of the church, but he's an author as well. And we know that book sales bring you cash.
Right.
Bring you oodles and oodles of cash if people are buying your books. And he's been on the Oprahs and all of the mega shows. And I would say, he makes money from the sales of his books and the products or whatever that he has in speaking arrangements. And he should be able to do whatever he wants to do with that money, even though he's a preacher. Just because he's the leader of the church doesn't mean he can't use that money to do it. But when you look at the entire picture, you say, oh man, this guy, because I think years back, his wife, Victoria, made a comment about flying commercial. Like she had a problem with the flying commercial or whatever.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. And I was just like, well, you piece it down like every other woman. I mean, what's the big deal? Why can't you just, fly first class like everybody else? I mean, but nevertheless, that was a comment that she made. So I think it just kind of makes you think about all the money that they make, all the money that's bringing in.
But it happens. It happens a lot of times with these, mega churches, right? Like, Jim Baker, and his wife,
Copeland.
Kenneth Copeland. I mean, it's just, it's not something that's new, and and it's like, I don't know how many times we need to be taken by these people before we begin to understand that, like, money doesn't buy faith.
It doesn't. But here's always been my thought, because I've had friends that tell me, man, I'm not going to that church and give that man all my money, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's cool. If you're a believer and you truly believe, the money is not for you to give it to the man anyways. It's you returning the tithe to God. If you believe that that's truth, return the tithe, the misuse is on him. I'm giving the money. I'm doing what I need to do. You misuse it, that's on you. Now, I wouldn't sit in a church under a person that I felt like I couldn't trust with the money.
Right.
So I think that's more bigger tragedy. It's like, well, dude, if you don't trust them, why
Why
are
are
you
you
still
there?
going here?
Yeah, why are you there?
It makes no sense. Why are you gonna go somewhere where you trust someone, or do you just want to go? Oh, it's the notoriety. I go to Lakewood, the largest church in Houston. So it's okay. So what? But
Right.
if you're not going there with the right
But
spirit,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Money doesn't buy faith.
exactly, it doesn't. You gotta have it.
And so, like, that's the thing. Like, are you going to the church for the right reason to begin with?
Exactly.
But still in case, like, with the money in the wall thing, like, they need to. I mean, there has to be some resolution to that. Like, I mean, that's a lot of money just to
How do
find
you
in a
explain
wall.
it? Sounds like it could be an insurance job. If you ask me.
The guy got paid. The guy who found it,
They gave him 20 grand, didn't
20
they?
grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
For
paid
turning it in.
for
Yeah.
turning it in. I think Crime Stoppers gave it to him.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It is.
But then that begs the question too, right? How long has he been working for this company? Did he put it in the wall to begin with, and now he's getting $20,000 out of it?
Out of it, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's we will probably never hear the truth about
Absolutely
this story,
not.
but it's one definitely for the books. It's like, wow, what do you? I don't know. It's kind of odd.
No, it's super odd.
That's a lot of money to have in a wall.
In a wall.
In a wall,
right?
yeah.
Like, put it in a safe, put it in a bank,
In a wall, that is a lot of money. Cool. Moving on. So, you ever been fired?
Yes.
I have to.
It's not pleasant.
Doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good at all. The time it was face to face. And I didn't expect it, but still didn't feel good. But it happened. But it's kind of part of life. It's kind of what goes on. And we'll deal with it. And I got over it, and now I'm here. But 900 people that worked for Better.com, which is a mortgage company, got this message. And I don't know if we can get some audio on this a little bit, Jacob. So Vishal Gara, he laid off these 900 people, but this is kind of the webinar they were in.
This is the second time in my career I'm doing this, and I do not want to do this. The last time I did it, I cried.
Okay, pause right there.
This time
Real quick. So the last time I did this, I cried. Okay, so if you're sitting there and this is just a regular call, you're wondering, okay, what? Last time he did this, he cried. What's kind of going through your mind with it? It looks like he's in an office setting. I don't know what the setup is for it, but for them, but looks like he is. Go ahead.
be strong. If you're on this call, you are part of the unlucky group. Your employment here is terminated effective immediately.
I've been in mortgage for almost 20 years. I've been through AmeriQuest layoff, Countrywide layoff, Capital One layoff, nothing.
Pause it right there. So this guy has to be the most unlucky if he's a loan officer that I've known. He named 4 of that I know personally imploded. So AmeriQuest went out of business. Countrywide went out of business. He mentioned Capital One. They kind of shut down some of their. They were supposed to be absorbing Wachovia, and then Wells Fargo ended up buying Wachovia. I lived through all these shutdowns, and they literally would come in, and your key wouldn't work one day, or you'd be at your desk, and someone would come in and say, "Okay, y'all leave," and you have to leave everything on the desk and be out of there. The difference back then was it was typically regulators, because it was with the lending rules and laws and things, people were just kind of doing ridiculous stuff to get these loans approved.
Right.
This is different. As I understand it, the research that I did, this guy, the CEO, it was a privately owned company that I think now someone's buying, and it's supposedly is kind of shoring up all their assets together, cutting out these 900 people to make it a little bit more attractive, I guess, in the buy. But this happens so many times during this time of the year, right before Christmas, going into the new year. For us mortgage companies, they lay off so many people. When I was at the big banks, it happened every single year.
And for it, especially at this point with like our jobs situation being what it is, like,
Right.
here we are sitting at what, 4.2% unemployment rate, which is horrible.
Right.
We got people working, that are on strike at Kellogg's plant, like, like if you've heard, I don't know if you've heard about the Kellogg's plant strike, like it's like 1,500 people, I want to say.
Oh,
And
yeah, okay.
and so they're all on strike, and the company's negotiating with them, and the company finally says, okay, well, we're done negotiating. You can have 3%, you can have all of your wages, we'll give you cost of living for the next few years, so on and so forth, but we're done negotiating, right? Like, so here you are, like in a position where unemployment is just horrific right now, and this guy is firing 900 people. The people at Kellogg said, we're not negotiating with these 1,400 people, we're gonna fire them. Like, what is really going on in the world?
So that's the thing, and you look at just kind of the state of where we are with the cost of everything. Home prices are high, gas prices are high, food is high, everything is high. It's like, hey, take all this stimulus money, but we're gonna get it back. So we're gonna jack up the prices for everything. Sure. And it's put people in a position to where folks are almost making more money staying home. So, well, people stayed at home, but now you got folks that are trying to get out and work, and 900 people are going to be in the unemployment line. And this is just one company. This is just one that we, because they're a larger a group that we've heard of, but I'm sure there's going to be much smaller ones that will topple down, ever so often and add to a problem that's already kind of out of control.
Well, and the problem is that, like, here we are, like, as a government, like, they've already sent out, like you said, stimulus after stimulus after stimulus, right? Like, and now you have people that are, losing their jobs and sitting on unemployment because they don't feel like they're getting paid what they're worth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we have all of these corporations and companies that value the dollar above their employees. Do you know what I mean? To me, it's like absolutely insane. Like, pay these people, and unemployment will, not be a concern. Like, if you value your people and if you value your company, like, pay them what they're worth, because they're the ones that make it happen for you.
Exactly. I totally agree. My wife, some years ago, she was interested in working for a company. I think they're still around, BMC Software. And she talked to someone that her husband worked there or something. And he was talking about how they had an on-site gym, and they had a cafeteria that could made lunch, and everybody, you didn't have to pay. And they had these little lounge areas where you could go, and when you take your break, and kind of sit back, read a book, or even take a nap if you needed to. But all the perks for them to work there, it was so great, nobody left.
No,
I mean, their turnover rate was so low because they didn't mind coming to work there. And a happy employee will make you more money than anything else, but we're always so focused on the money,
the dollar. And that's what, that's exactly what you were saying about this guy. He's selling his company, and in order for it to look like a better deal for his side, on the backside for him, like, he's going to lay off all of these people so that he can make more money. Right? Did the other company ask him to do that? Like, where does that stand? Right? Like, was that your choice? Was that their choice? Would they have rather retained these people?
Right.
Or, like, what does that look like?
So he announced last week that back in May, that they were going to be going public, and he got like $750 million in cash as part of the deal. So they're preparing to have a balance sheet of over $1 billion once all of this takes place. So he's been involved in some controversy before, but it's a money thing. That's really all it is. And these 900 people and their families, if they have anybody to take care of.
Well, and that's
right
how
before the
and that's
holidays.
how I feel about the Kellogg situation too, because there are other companies like John Deere
Mhm.
who their people went on strike too, like, and John Deere negotiated with their employees and gave them 10% raises.
Oh, they did get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but Kellogg's is like, oh, I'm going to give you 3%. These people are working 80 plus hours a
That's
week.
a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
that's a lot.
they are keeping your business open. They kept your business open through COVID. They're keeping your business open now. The worst part about it is that the article that I read, right, said that the machines would run for X amount of days, and then they would shut the machines down for 3 days so that those machines could rest.
Okay.
Right? But they're not even giving their human employees that they're
rest.
right. They're these human employees are working seven days a week, sometimes up to like 30 days in a row.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty ridiculous.
Right. So you value your machinery over like the human. That's crazy.
It is. Oh, because that machine cost me this much money, and I can make this much if I keep it running, but we don't consider the human being that way.
No, and that's nuts to me.
It is.
That's absolutely insane.
It absolutely is. Speaking of nuts, man, how about your boy Chris Cuomo over there getting caught up with his brother's ridiculous scandal? Now I'm no fan of the entire network. Period. I'll just leave it at that. But I question it because I think about my own siblings and how far you go to help them. Right. I'm not going to jail for any of them. I told them that when they were younger because they're much younger than me. And I would always say, hey, man, don't go to jail, bro, because I can't go there to see you, to visit you. Not my
Right.
cup of tea. But him using his power to basically cover up what was taking place with his brother, that speaks volumes on your character. I mean, I know you care for your family, but I mean, if you got these allegations and this stuff and you're using your position to hide it, that's kind of jacked up.
Right. Well, I mean, he was wrong. The governor was wrong to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Andrew Cuomo, yeah.
Right. So like he was wrong to begin with, and just the idea that anybody, like even if it wasn't his brother, like the idea that somebody felt it necessary to try
Right.
and have to cover up for him, right? Like that's insane to me. And then on top of that, here you are, you're a public figure, right? And people trust you.
Yep.
And you have now used your position to influence, something that is, I don't care who you are. It's morally, ethically, like it is wrong.
It is.
What he did was wrong.
It is.
Whether it's Governor Cuomo or whether it's Donald Trump,
right.
or like,
No matter who it is.
you don't get to do those things.
You're not above the law.
Smooth it over for you. And that doesn't matter who it is either, whether
Right.
it's your brother or your aunt, or I don't care, no relation, right?
Right.
Like it's still not okay. Still not
No,
okay.
I agree. I totally agree with you on that. It's unfortunate that it happened. Now, if we look at, I don't know if you have Apple TV, but there's a show on there called The Morning Show.
Mm.
And it kind of goes along with, from what I can gather, Matt Lauer's career. He was shamed. I mean, I say shamed, but he was exposed for his behavior as well. But Steve Carell does an awesome job in it. I recommend it. If you haven't seen it, check it out, The Morning Show. But looking at Chris Cuomo having, I think he had the #1 show on CNN. He had a Sirius XM podcast. It's done. It's canceled. HarperCollins, which is one of the big 5 publishing companies, we got Random House, Simon Schuster, and I forgot the other, Macmillan. HarperCollins, they were supposed to be releasing a book next year. And I think they said the name of that book, let me see, I had it pulled here. Deep Denial. So it was probably going to be some good juicy stuff in that book. I kind of hate that they won't release it. Maybe they can change the name and still release it, and so we can all see what's going on. Because it's always no matter, I watch all and listen to both sides of the argument, because the information, you just want to know what's going on with it, right? Well, we don't know, but you look at what opportunities he's lost from that one decision of trying to help out his brother, cover up whatever it is. Now, I'll say he's probably not guiltless. There's probably gonna be some stuff come out of the woodworks for him too, but
Right. Well, and I mean, if you're, like you said it yourself, it speaks volumes to your character, right? Like if you're willing to cover up for somebody, then what kind of skeletons are in your closet?
What are in your closet? Because that's where true character is built. That's when no one's looking. How do you behave when no one is watching?
For sure.
And that's kind of the thing where you have to kind of look at it and say, do you trust this person? Do you not trust this person? And man, he made a terrible decision in doing that, but he was helping out his brother.
Yeah, but now he's put that out there for the whole world to see,
Right.
And you can't take that back.
Oh, it's out there.
It's
out there. It's definitely out there. So it is what it is. It is what it is. We got a couple other scandals. Well, I say scandals, but we'll jump into some real estate stuff. So we know Kyle Rittenhouse got off from the trial. Now, surprisingly enough, he's making his rounds to talk shows and podcasts and whatever. And it seems like people do that.
Is he crying a bunch?
Well, I didn't see him crying, not on this particular one, but he was on one. And LeBron James, which kind of he has a voice and opinion about a lot of this stuff, have been making fun of him for crying. We all saw him failing at trying to squeeze those tears out, right?
That was horrible.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the man didn't feel bad about what he did. If I killed somebody, I would feel bad, because we're not built to just kill people. Not a normal human. That's not what that's not what we do. But he probably felt bad, but it was not a good look. The optics were terrible for him as he tried to squeeze those tears out. And I think LeBron James made a comment of it, and I think it's been a meme all around with this dude's face.
Right.
Well, when he was on his podcast, you can hear what he says. It's a short clip here. Excuse the one language, people.
Well, LeBron said you read lemon drops, and then he got the flu.
Obviously, lemons don't make Kyle cry. He just eats them.
I eat it straight up. I threw away my Lakers shirt.
I'm kind of disappointed you had one in the first place.
I was a Lakers fan too before.
Sarah Gonzalez.
Yeah. And then I'm like, you know what? Fuck you.
So that's what he had to say.
Wow.
Now, I think this kid, well, he 18 now, I'm guessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would be embarrassed if my son got on a podcast show and was saying that to a whole grown man. It's like, man, I didn't raise you like that. That's not.
But
that's
you're
not
also
acceptable.
you're also talking about a woman who drove her child across state lines with a gun. So, like, to go exact vigilante justice, do you honestly believe that she cares what words are coming out of his mouth?
She may not. He's obviously on the show. I don't listen much to Sarah Gonzalez. I've seen her on Twitter or whatever, but I know she leans right, maybe even ultra right. I don't even know what her stances are. But of course, they had him on. Now, of course, you're probably going to be surprised at this, Jeff, but from the videos that I saw, the young man was defending himself. Now, the problem I have with Kyle Rittenhouse is he never should have been there.
Exactly. He never should have been there.
Never should have been there.
And his mother should have never brought him. Like that, and that brings me to the point. Like, let's talk about this Ethan Crumbley.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned him earlier.
So let's talk about him a little bit.
Give me some detail on it. I don't know everything about this Joker, but
so apparently, he participated. He was the gunman in
he's 15 or 16. Did they say 15? Wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's 15 or
Okay.
16. I can't remember the exact
And I didn't even hear
age.
he was in custody. I know they had his parents.
Yes,
but
he is in
custody.
He is in
Okay.
custody. So here's the thing: his parents bought him a gun. It was accessible to him when they were pointed out about his behavior at school. The school told him, like, take him, and they just left him
At school.
And later on that same day is when he started shooting the place up, right? Like, so, and now everybody wants to hold the parents accountable, which is fine, because I think that they played a role.
Oh, come on. Let me see where you're going with this. Go ahead.
Right? So, like, I want to know why Kyle Rittenhouse's mother was never charged in playing a role when she obviously drove him across state lines to be in this situation. He should have never been there. You said it yourself, right? Like, and he wouldn't have been if his mother hadn't taken him. So why isn't she being held accountable? But they're going to hold these parents accountable for this school shooting. Ethan Crumbley's parents. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I understand what you're saying. Now, me taking you to the mall, if I drop you off at the mall and you go in there and you go to the food court and rob Chick-fil-A, or whatever, I can't be held responsible for what you do if I dropped you off. No different than.
But that's not true.
How can I be held responsible?
But that's
for that?
not true because like if you drive somebody to a bank and somebody goes into the bank and they rob the place and then you're still sitting outside, unbeknownst to you what they're doing, right? Like you're still aiding. If they come out with a bag full of money and
now,
you drive
was she
off,
sitting there waiting for him,
huh?
Or she dropped him off?
Well, are you talking about Ethan Crumbley or are you talking about
Kyle
Rittenhouse?
Rittenhouse? Yeah. If the mom, did she drop him off and leave?
I don't know if she dropped him off and left, or I don't know what the details to that are. Like,
Because I think that may be the saving for her. Now, if she was, to your point, sitting out and waiting for him to go and do that, that could have been an argument to say she was complicit in that.
But didn't she? I mean, didn't she know that she was bringing him over there with a gun?
To protest.
With a gun.
To protest.
With a gun.
Yes.
That
was legal.
I wish I had the definition of the word protest because, like, I'm pretty sure
now, again,
that the definition of the word protest doesn't involve anything to do with guns or ammo.
It doesn't, but it does happen.
Protest
in our
protest
country.
is verbal.
It does happen in our country. We know that it does take place. Now, what a 17-year-old kid was going to do over there, I don't know. I think that's where the most egregious offense lies because he never should have placed himself in a situation that had nothing to do with him. Now, beyond that, he was there. He was defending himself.
So then, do you think that it's right that Ethan Crumbley's parents are being charged then? Like, so you said no that you don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse's mother should be charged for anything, right? Which I totally disagree with, I have to say.
Perfect for the Olympian table. Perfect.
But what are your feelings about Ethan's parents?
So Ethan's parents, because he's 15 years old, they bought him a handgun, which I don't think is even I don't think anyone, you got to be 21 to buy a handgun. I think you can get a rifle before then, but he shouldn't have had a handgun. So they were negligent in that aspect. And quite frankly, I'm surprised this is the first set of parents that are being held responsible
it should have been
in some of
happening
these
all
school
along.
shootings. There's an old clip, man. Chris Rock had a stand-up show years ago, and he was talking about getting on an elevator, and I was on there, and it was it was a white kid on there, and I dove off. He's like, these white kids shooting up these schools. It was in jest, but he was serious about it. And this is like 20 years ago that he made this comment about it. But back to what you were saying, because I think they were negligent in allowing him access for it, I think they are complicit. Now, not even that. Hold on. Because you brought up a point where I thought you were going before. The administration knew that there was something up with this kid.
They did.
And they let him stay at the school. Why aren't they being charged for something as well?
Well, because they told the parents. They did tell the parents that there was something going on with him and asked them to remove him from the school. And the parents were like, no, he's good. Let him stay.
That's not how it goes, though. My son was running he wasn't even running a fever. His stomach was hurting and his head was hurting when all this COVID stuff started.
Oh, yeah.
Now, he has a car. He can drive. He called me from the nurses. His dad, I wasn't feeling good. She told me that, she took my temperature. I don't have a fever, but my stomach is hurting, whatever. She said I have to leave school, and come back. The only way I can come back is with a COVID test to say that I'm released or you got to be gone for 10 days. I was like, there's no way you're not going for 10 days. You don't have COVID. So I got on the phone with her and she explained to me, I said, well, ma'am, he doesn't have fever. He doesn't have any of the, well, yeah, it's just precautionary, whatever, blase. And she says, but he's going to you have to come and pick him up. I said, well, first, I'm not coming to pick him up. He has a vehicle and he can drive himself home if you really want him to leave.
Right.
He can actually leave. So they were not going to let him stay and go back to the classroom at all because of those things. This administration or whoever they were, because of it was some behavioral situation, they could have done the same thing. I think they just overlooked it. They didn't, and they muffed it on that deal because this kid went back and killed all these people. So they probably could have killed more.
So they should both be held accountable, is what you're saying.
That's what I think.
The parents, and
the school administrators, whoever was aware of whatever reason that he was supposed to leave. I don't think they get all scot-free. That's just my opinion.
Right, and I totally agree with that. Because I think that at least from the parent side too. Like, and it, as you said, I think that it should have been happening all along, right? Because we have a thing called truancy.
Absolutely.
Right, where we hold the parents accountable for
yes.
the child's
yes.
attendance, right? Like, and they can get fines and this, that, and the other for not allowing for not making their kids go to school, right? So if we can hold them accountable in that venue, then why are we not holding them accountable for their child's actions on other fronts?
You know why? Truancy's tied to money. They got to have enough heads at that school to make sure they get the continued federal funding. If you miss too many days of school, they don't have enough students accounted for. That affects the numbers and it affects the funds. True. So there we go back to money. Again, right? It's like, here we are. We got these, was it 4 people that got killed, that he killed at this school? And it's unfortunate that it happened. They're trying him as an adult, as I understand.
And the sad part is that the mother texted him after it was all said and done and was like, don't do it. Well, so that text was what, to cover her ass? And then they went into hiding.
That part.
You want to talk about speaking volumes to somebody's character.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That part. It's like, what are y'all doing?
If you don't feel like you have any involvement in it, if it was his choice, right? If it was his thing, then
right.
Like, what are you hiding from?
What are you hiding from? They said it was for their safety or whatever, but whatever. We can
That's
call
crazy.
it. It is crazy.
It's crazy talk. Like, you would be, if you're worried about your safety, then you should be at a place where you can be kept safe, and that's not sitting in some hole in the ground, right? Like, go to the police.
Like, who are you, Bin Laden? He's like, come on,
right?
Yeah, running around, the ridiculousness. But yeah, that I agree, man. That situation is unfortunate. And I guess that it'll be another year or so before we hear anything about any kind of court case, I'm guessing.
That's right. And that's insane too. That's just like this thing with Jesse Smollett, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Here we are, like, 3 years later.
That was 2018. When did that all take place? 2018?
2019.
2019?
Yeah. So here we are, like 3 years later, and we're having a trial for him. Look, the court of public opinion, everybody has already made their decision about what's going on. I don't even know, like, how did you honestly even find a jury to try this case? Like, and I don't even get me started on him because he's a mess.
And I didn't see his testimony, but they say he's still saying he didn't do a fake attack. Like, he's saying that it didn't happen.
And he's so lying. And, and that's the horrible thing about it, right?
The people that you had involved already told on you, and you're denying it.
And there's paper trails, like, for the cash that's gone into this.
It's like, man, just take your punishment and move on down the line.
I mean, what are you gaining at this point? What are you gaining from it?
Nothing.
Like, what are you gaining from continuing to lie about
Nothing.
it?
He'll be a has-been and
never will be
work
again.
Exactly.
He's a has-been and never will be again.
Exactly. That's unfortunate.
And for me, it's worse for the minorities that he represents. Right. Because he's gay and he's black, and he's sitting here lying. One, he's sitting here lying about a hate crime. Two, he set it up. And then what validity does that give for people that are actually
going through
through these hate crimes?
Yeah.
Like, that, to me, that is the saddest thing.
It's the boy, cry wolf kind of deal. It's like, when do you really believe that it's a valid deal?
So, like, as a gay man, right? Like, if I go out and I get beat down by somebody, and then I turn around and go to the police and say, hey, like, I just got beat up by these guys and it's a hate crime, and and they were calling me all these horrible words, like, then they're gonna be like, it's called into question more because of actions from people like Jesse Smollett.
I agree.
And I think that that's horrible. It's just absolutely horrible, and I don't even know where to go. Whatever he gets, he deserves.
I don't disagree with you on that one. And I don't know, is this one, is it a civil case, this one, or is it criminal?
The trial is for charges of lying,
like fraudulent type of,
lying to the police, and what is it called? It's like hindering the case.
I got you. Yeah, because I know they spent tons of money and resources on trying to find out who these mystery men were that beat him up. As he was walking in Chicago in the middle of the night to go to Subway.
With his,
it just,
and then he calls the police, and like, I mean, I don't know how long it was, 20-30 minutes later, they respond, and the guy still got this rope around his neck. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, like, it's a little far-fetched, man.
If you were honestly, if this was on it, the first thing that I would do would be to take that noose off.
Of course, I'd be like, look, that was around my neck. They put that on my neck.
See,
like, I wouldn't be wearing it like a gold chain or something. Yeah.
And then, did you check out the size? Did you check out the size of that rope that was? I mean, it wasn't anything. It looked like what you would hang clothes from.
Oh, like a clothesline?
Yeah, it wasn't like the picture. Like, the picture wasn't anything.
So it wasn't like a noose type.
No, it wasn't like it wasn't like the rope. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's not a good look, man. It's not a good look, Juicy, as Dave Chappelle says, Juicy Smollett. It's not a good look for you, brother. We'll see. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that Because they put him on the stand, so which I don't think helps at all. But
No,
it's
but he's
whatever.
still saying that it's all a lie. And now he's saying that he was in, and I'd never heard this before until recently, but he's also saying that he was in a relationship with one of the brothers.
What?
Yeah, that he had been doing drugs and having sexual relations with one of the brothers that was involved in the attack. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's news. I hadn't heard that.
I hadn't heard it until just recently either.
Wow.
So like the story keeps changing, and that's where it really gets called into question, right?
It does when you start adding these different layers and such in. So you mentioned the minority piece as we were talking about Juicy there. So this good segue into this real estate segment of this podcast where we talk about home price discrimination that people have been experiencing when getting their house appraised. I think this is something, of course, this is a story that came up. I read about it, I want to say at least a couple of years ago that it was happening, but it seems like it's been recurring where folks that, people of color are finding that their homes are basically being appraised for less than it would be had they been not been a person of color. And that's not how we're supposed to do this thing.
No,
We're supposed to have laws to protect.
right. There's a fair housing law that is supposedly supposed to protect people
Right.
from these fraudulent claims, but I was watching this news report and they were talking this one right here on CBS Today.
They did like an undercover thing, I think, on this. That's how they found out about it.
So what happened is this black couple had this house, and a couple of years ago they had it appraised, and it appraised for like $1 million, right? So they've decided, that they put a lot of work into it and stuff, and so they had somebody come out and appraise it again because they're fixing to put it on the market. Well, the lady who appraised it was she was a white lady, and she appraised them at a market value of like $995,000.
Okay.
Right? And they're like, man, this appraised like 2 years ago at like $1 million. Like, so why now is it decreasing? So they didn't think that it made any sense. So what they did was they called a friend of theirs, a white friend of theirs, and was like, hey, I'm going to get this place appraised. I want you to come in and pretend to be the owner. And then they went through the house and did what they're calling whitewashing. Like they took all of the ethnic pictures off of the wall and everything like that. They had this other appraiser come in and appraise it, and they appraise it at $1.5 million.
Wow.
Right? And this is in 2021.
Yeah. That
You know
is
what I'm saying?
unfortunate, man.
And I just don't understand how in this day and age, like, we can continue with this, like this. I mean, it's systemic racism, and we have like one of the things that they reported in that news report was like something like overall throughout the whole country, like in black neighborhoods, the prices of houses are like up to $48,000 less for the same house you would find in a white neighborhood.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I just don't. Well, I can't get behind it for one, and I don't understand it for another. If it's the same house, like if you just take the same house and move it into a different neighborhood,
right.
the value of that house should still be the same.
Should, but back in the day when they were doing the steering, that's how it started. A lot of folks don't realize Compton in California, that used to be a white neighborhood, but as blacks started to move into the area, whites started moving out, and they quote unquote steered people into those neighborhoods, and the values of those properties would decrease in comparison to some of the other ones. To your point, that were similar or exactly the same in another neighborhood that was more affluent. But it happens. So when you hear about people saying, "Oh, there's no systemic racism," those are the kinds of things that people are or you look at that it may not be overt, so to speak, but it's there.
Right.
It's there, and it happens.
But then on the appraiser side of it, how do like what I want to know is how she's going to defend that, like because they're suing her now. The original, like, and how do you?
I can imagine.
And how do you defend that? Like, you went in and you priced it at $995,000. Somebody else went in and appraised it at $1.5 million.
Right.
Like, now you're getting sued about it, and how do you defend that?
You can't. And I also wonder what benefit to the appraiser was it to appraise it so much less?
Right.
Why are you sticking your nose into just collect your money and move on
go
down the
on?
line?
Yeah, like I don't understand. Like, and now you have a lawsuit against you, and was it really worth it?
Right.
Was it really worth it? But that's a problem in the industry, and has been a problem in the industry for many years, right? Like, and it all goes back to like when blacks weren't allowed to drink out of the same fountain as white people. You
Jim
know what
Crow
I'm
stuff.
saying?
Absolutely.
Like it all goes back to that.
Absolutely. Which folks don't realize wasn't that long ago, guys. Wasn't that long ago. So we're hoping that we can move forward, and people can, even if you disagree, you can still treat people like humans, and we can.
Absolutely. We all we all have to live on this planet.
Absolutely. I totally agree. More real estate news, man. So this family in Melbourne, Australia. Now, this happened to them a couple of years ago, but this article has kind of surfaced because they're now kind of destitute. But of course, we in real estate, when you're writing a contract, you have a buyer and a seller, and you have agents that are involved, and everyone's representing their party. And you want to get the deal as a buyer, to get this house. You love it, boom, it's good. So you do what you got to do to make the deal work. This family lost their deposit of $320,000, which was 10% of this. They said 756 square meter mansion. Now I had to do the math on that, the conversion. That's about 8,200 square feet. So it was a nice size domain,
right?
For these people. Sam and Nadine is what their name was. Three kids. So husband, wife, 3 kids, all under 12, moving into this huge mansion. So the deal with it is there was what's called a what do they term it in their contract? It's a little bit different than what ours are. There was a finance clause that was missing, or it was removed from the contract. So when the husband says he noticed it was missing. It's kind of one of those things where he saw it, they liked the house, and here is his quote. And this happens all the time to people. It's the subject to finance clause. It was a bit weird when they removed the subject to finance clause. We wanted the house, of course. We had got emotionally attached to the house. We like it. I tell people all the time, don't get emotionally attached to this house. Don't envision yourself having a barbecue in the backyard. Don't envision with the Christmas tree. Don't do it, because you'll do anything to get this house. And these people did the one thing that cost them $320,000, which is go under contract without this subject to finance clause, which would allow them to back out of the deal if the bank didn't approve them for the financing.
But this is years ago. So like how did
2 years ago, 2019.
so how but I'm saying like if they had already bought the house, if they moved forward with it, like then how did they just lose this deposit? Like cuz obviously they were approved for everything. Did they move in?
Well, they were pre-approved in it, so they were pre-approved with these conditions. Once they got the contract and everything went live under the contract and it was in order, they were cool with just moving forward without that clause because they felt like they were good to go. But the financing piece fell through because whatever the program that he was, I think he's a doctor, the program that they were doing, it had a cap on the purchase price at $2 million. Well, this house was $3.2 million. I guess someone either didn't tell them or they weren't aware of it, but whatever the case is, they were not able to get the financing for that much house.
Wow.
So the seller, which here we usually, we try to make sure that the buyer doesn't lose their earnest money. The seller said, no, I'm keeping it. So they kept their $320,000, which from what the story talks about, it was all of their savings, everything they had put together. So they're living in a little tiny house over there in Victoria.
And I mean, I guess there's nothing, there's no like recourse for them because they
signed the contract.
They signed it and they said we're okay with this.
Yep. Now the human thing would be give these people their money back. I mean, it's like
absolutely
because you'll sell the house, right? You'll eventually end up selling the house. Give these folks their money back and let them move on down the line.
I mean, what kind of person does that make you?
Not a person, in my opinion.
Like that seller is like that is.
We're not talking about $3,200. We're talking about $320,000.
Like $350,000.
Yes.
That's insane. And he's just like, oh well, I don't feel bad about this at all. I'm gonna keep it.
I'm gonna keep it. I might even just stay here. I thought I was gonna leave. I got a $320,000. I'll just stay here and make the payments or whatever the case is.
Fix it up.
Yeah.
Right.
It sucks for them, but that's yeah. That's what happens. So just be careful when you're signing these contracts, people. Make sure you talk with your agent. Make sure you're aware of what you're signing and that it is in your benefit. That if there's an issue or something that goes through with your financing, which is the third-party financing addendum, which gives you kind of an out. You get a total amount of days for financing, and if it doesn't get approved, then you can move on down the line.
But so many people do that, like I see it all the time being in like property management, right?
Yeah. Like
people go in and they sign over for like they buy these houses, right? Like condos or whatever, and there's rules and regulations tied to HOAs, right? They don't read those rules and regulations. They're just buying a house, right? So when they sign on that dotted line, they sign in agreement with to follow all of the HOA's policies and rules and regulations and such, right? Like that's part of the deal, right? Like, and so they get into these properties, they don't know what they've signed for, right? And then I'm telling them, look, that pipe busted, that's your pipe according to the declarations and bylaws, right? Like that's your pipe. But they don't know what that means because they never read it. So people just go in and they just sign things.
Yep.
And then they cry about it later when they realize that what their actual responsibilities are.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. But yeah, so it is what it is. You got to make sure you're reading what you're working with someone that you trust that'll be working in as a fiduciary for you with your benefit.
Get a real estate agent.
Absolutely. Don't try to go it alone.
No, I just had a guy that I told, luckily for him, the guy that was buying from him, was all on the up and up. But like I knew this guy and he was trying to sell his condos and I told him, I was like, you need an agent.
He was trying to do it all on his own.
On his own. And I was like, look, my best advice to you is for you to get an agent I was like, because, something could happen. You're not, you're not an agent. You're not in tune with what's going on in the market.
Right.
You don't know how to deal with these things, these questions, these whatever, like get somebody that can help you with that.
Absolutely.
Get a professional.
Absolutely.
And he went ahead and he went it all on his own, but, in rare cases, it works out. Like I said, the buyer was, all on the up and up and knew what was going on.
Oh,
So,
yeah. It can be done without an agent, but it's not recommended.
But, right, don't, like, if you have a choice, I would not do it.
I wouldn't go into court to argue on my own. I'd get an attorney.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Although I can do it, just hire the professionals.
I mean, I can do some research and find out, what laws I broke and how to defend that law, right? Like, but at the same time, like, is that my job? Is that my focus? Is that where is that my wheelhouse? Like, should I be doing that? No. Can I do that? Yeah. Anybody can.
I totally agree. You're preaching to the choir on that one, man. And that's actually a good place to put a bow on this thing, man, because if you need a real estate agent, we are the Olympian Table. But if you need information about being a real estate agent, or if you're looking to sell or buy a home, the information, you can contact Steven in the description below. If you need a mortgage or you want to become a loan officer, my information is down in the description below. Share this information to anyone that you think that can use it. I'd like to thank Jeff for attending this podcast with me, man. It was a good conversation.
It was.
I appreciate you being here, man. And, as always, if you want us to talk about something specific or you need anything from us, reach out to us at the Olympian Table. We'll be here every Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Take care.
Awesome. Have a good one.